Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Love Your Dogs podcast. This podcast is heart led, real life, experience based, and not dry science. My name is Bree Drake. I am a holistic dog health educator, a certified holistic pet health coach, and I am a dog lover, an animal lover, nature nerd. Just wanted to share some of those other things with you. I thank you all for still continuing to come back every single week. It is such an honor to be able to share what I've learned with you and to have like-minded dog parents, like-minded humans in general want to listen to me. I really love it. I've been seeing a lot of you sharing that you're listening in your car while you're working out, while you're working, and it just means the world to me. I've always loved podcasts. They're a way I learn a lot of things. A lot of what I know now about holistic dog health in general is from listening to experts on podcasts. So it's really rewarding to be able to do it myself and be able to give back and put my own perspective on things, my own spin on things. A couple of housekeeping things. I'm trying to get better about not just diving right in and, catching up on some things. Behind me here, you can see I have an East Perry sheepskin pelt. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know that Mr. Pine just got his amazing new East Perry pup pad, a dog bed. So East Perry specializes in sheepskin products. I've talked about them before. They have a lot of great human products, home products, dog products. And I wanted to remind anyone that's listening that or being part of the Tailswell community, you get 15% off by using the code TAILSWELL15. And that helps me as well. Obviously, I'm an affiliate now, but I'm only an affiliate with companies that I trust and I like and that I use myself and that I would buy from myself. So East Perry is one of them, and Tailswell 15 gets you a discount and also helps support me and my mission. So thank you so much. And to remind you too, I also have some downloadable guides to holistic dog health on my website, from holistic flea and tick support to holistic heartworm and parasite support, detox, vaccine detox. So those are some ways you can support Tailswell also. And then remember, I do this limited number, at least a couple of weeks a month, of one-on-one consultations for those of you who are new to this and feel like you're getting hit by a fire hose, or you're dealing with something really specific and you left the vet, like, what do I do now? I offer one-on-one consultations to kind of help guide you and literally coach you through adopting this new lifestyle for our dogs, this better lifestyle for our dogs, because I know it's hard. I wish I had me when I was first figuring this out and kind of wading into territory I wasn't familiar with. So I do offer one-on-one consultations as well. And you can find all of that at tailswell.com. That is my website. You can find a little more about me. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say it just to hold myself accountable. I do have a couple of products that will be coming to Tailswell soon that I am really excited about. And I'll go ahead and share the first one with you because I'm always talking about herbal rinses, whether it's here on the podcast, on Instagram, or working one-on-one. And when I talk about herbal rinses, I mean, there's so many benefits to them. I really am not a big fan of bathing dogs, especially overbathing. The skin is so important and so often overlooked. And I'll get into that in a lot more detail, but I have found that herbal rinses are just magical, not only from a maintenance perspective, especially if you have a dog that's running around outside all the time, but if you have a dog that swims in the pool a lot, or a dog that's getting muddy and you're constantly having to rinse them off and maybe bathing them, the herbal rinses are a good alternative. And itchy dogs, oh my gosh, itchy dogs really need a soothing herbal rinse on occasion. I have created one of my own that I've been working on for months, and I'm in the final stages to where I'm going to be offering some in small batches right now, but bigger plans down the road. So be on the lookout. And a way that you can find out about these new things early and in a clear way where it's not lost on the internet is to go to my website, go to tailswell.com and subscribe to my email list. I am not one of those obnoxious people that sends a whole bunch of junk email, but when things important come up, listening here, you find out a lot of good stuff too, obviously. But when things important come up, when I am sharing about discount codes like East Perry's 15% off code and talking about these new products that I'm excited about, that, I've been testing out the product myself on Pine. Testing out myself on Pine, and I love it. So sign up for those emails, subscribe to my email so that you can be the first to know. I'll have discounts in there, and restocks, things of that nature. So get ahead, do that now. And I think that about covers it. So the topic today I want to talk about, I guess, is I don't name these episodes before I dive in. I kind of generally know what I want to talk about. So I usually name them after based on where my conversation leads. But today I shared on Instagram this afternoon, or plan to, a reel about how there needs to be more honesty and less ego in conventional veterinary medicine. I talked a lot about that in a reel today, just like a little snippet. So I want to expand on that. And I guess where this is likely going to lead is how we really should have a healthcare team for our dogs, like a whole group of people that care for our dogs. And I know that sounds like a lot considering I'm very anti-intervention for the most part. So you would build a team and then hopefully not have to rely on them too much, but you should take a team approach to your dog's healthcare and not ever expect everything and not have too high of an expectation out of the conventional system. So conventional care, and I shared a lengthy post on this recently. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Yes. So basically, the conventional system was created for scaling reasons, for simplification reasons. We went from a fairly reasonable amount of households with dogs, farm dogs, working dogs, to all of a sudden there's millions of dogs in all kinds of homes and apartments and cities, and they're everywhere. I touched on this a little bit last episode. There's a lot of dogs. Anything that scales, like the veterinary care system had to scale because there was a lot more dogs, sadly, a lot more people who are looking at dogs through a different lens than someone on a farm, perhaps. And they're kind of micromanaging and really outsourcing critical thinking and care to a vet. They don't know how to handle things on their own. So there was a major need for a lot more veterinary care. So when millions of dogs need care, everything has to be fast and I say cheap. I say cheap when I talk about food, not necessarily veterinary care, because if you know, veterinary care has gotten pretty expensive. So care has to be fast and convenient and predictable, and it has to be a one size fits all to achieve that for everybody. So you get good enough for most dogs, but not perfect for your dog. You're not getting individualized care. So our conventional vets, I don't want to come off as a vet basher ever, because obviously there will come a day where I need veterinary care and I have a dog named Pine who has a very unique name. I'm recognizable now. I'm sure half of the veterinary world, if not more, can't stand me, but I don't want to bash vets. I do. There are some, especially on the internet, on social media, who have a hard time acknowledging and owning owning what their role is in the dog care space. So conventional care is centered around being reactive and managing symptoms, a management thing. There's emergency care, there's acute care, there's short-term relief, there's emergency surgeries, there's blood work and diagnostics, ultrasounds, those kinds of tools. So they're a reactionary medicine. The testing detects a problem when it's already there. The acute care is reacting to a problem that's already happened. There's not a lot of prevention. There's not a lot of emphasis on true prevention and on supporting our dogs holistically, obviously. So it's a different type of care. Until you know that there's other types of veterinarians that exist, you assume that is how you care for dogs, when that is just the conventional model is standard. It's the standard of care. And I said this in the reel and I felt kind of bad about it. It's calling it just the minimum, but it is a minimum standard, just like the minimum nutrient requirements that have to be met by AFCO's standards for kibble. They are the standard to make care accessible and as effective and efficient as possible, to treat as many dogs as possible as quickly as possible. And that comes from a demand need. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of business, a lot of need for vet. But then there's also a business side to it where the quick, easy treatments provide faster turnover. And as you know, if you want to dig into it even more, a lot of what we're doing to dogs conventionally is making them repeat customers for life. So there is a business side to it, but the initial intention was to be able to give as many dogs the care that they need as quickly as possible, because there is so much demand. And I think there is still a vet shortage, which is why I don't understand why there is so much conventional versus holistic vets when collaboration would make everyone's life so much easier. So let's talk about holistic and integrative. Let's talk about holistic and homeopathic vets. Integrative vets are kind of a weird area. I like that they lean on some natural tools, but I still think they lean too heavily on the conventional side. If you know me, I'm much more holistic, much more homeopathic, much more on that extreme end. When you work with a holistic or homeopathic vet, and let's talk about your team first. For Pine, I have a relationship with a holistic veterinarian that I meet with virtually because unfortunately, where we live, there are actually no good integrative, holistic, or homeopathic vets. And that is likely the case for most people. You're not going to find one locally unless you're extremely lucky. And you might see some holistic vets locally when you look up local listings, but chances are they're not the real deal. You're going to go in and you're going to be disappointed. So it's really hard to find good ones. So be ready to accept traveling up to 2 or 3 hours to see that vet or meeting with them online virtually. So with Pine, I have that relationship with a holistic vet, relationship with a homeopathic vet. And then I do have a vet locally that has seen him once to get his titer test blood draw done. And I trust them. I think if I had something, if they don't hate me by now, I think if something were to go on where I needed him to be seen, I could go to them. But I do have a great emergency vet, and that is probably my plan A. If there's ever an emergency, I would take him to the emergency vet. But so anyway, I have a holistic vet relationship, homeopathic vet, these are virtual. And if he needed to be physically seen for any reason to give these virtual vets a more clear picture, if they needed me to get some blood work done, they needed me to have ultrasound. Obviously, I don't have a holistic vet locally, so I would lean on that local vet if they would see me, considering his vaccine status. I would lean on them to go and just get that testing done. And then I would send those results to my holistic and homeopathic vet to interpret and help me create a plan going forward. And then if there's a true emergency, I lean on an emergency vet because as I may have mentioned in podcasts, I mention it in my comments on Instagram all the time in comment replies. An emergency vet will still see your dog regardless of vaccination status. The emergency vet is there to stabilize an animal, not to ask questions. The top priority is stabilizing your animal. Some may ask about vaccinations status just for safety reasons for their staff, whether your dog's up to date on rabies vaccines or not, but they're not going to turn you away. They're going to stabilize your dog. So don't worry about that. I know from personal experience, unfortunately, with Skip and Anne's cancer, the last year of their lives, between the two of them, we were in and out of 4 different emergency vets in 4 different states. And never once did it cross my mind to show them any kind of history or vaccine records. And they never asked, not at all. So I know from personal experience that that is true. So that is what Pine's care team would look like. And that's what I encourage everyone else's to look like. Going back to talking about holistic and homeopathic vets, the goal with them is if you have to drive a couple of hours to one or you have to meet virtually and you feel like that appointment fee is expensive, I'd say they're usually about $200 to $300, sometimes less, sometimes more. And it may come off as a lot, but it's kind of interesting. I think it's because you know the cost up front because you're seeing it, making sure my microphone was on, because you're seeing the cost up front. When you go to the vet, you kind of go in blindly and you get hit with your invoice at the end. So there's like no way out. They're kind of asking for forgiveness, not permission when they hand you the bill. Because anytime I went to the vet, especially with more than one dog, back when I had Skip and Ann, it was always at least $200-300 every time I was there. There's could be the sticker shock of that price, but whether you're traveling or whether you think it's expensive or kind of weird to do the virtual appointments, the goal of a holistic and homeopathic vet, or the goal and the results and the outcomes of working with a true, really good holistic or homeopathic vet is that they give you the tools to support your dog. They give you the foundations through feeding and avoiding toxins, using safer natural alternatives for flea and tick prevention and vaccine alternatives. They set you up to hopefully not have to need them ever again. The goal is to set you up for success so that your dog hopefully doesn't have recurring issues that need attention, or that if they do have something minor at home, because you've learned from experience, you now know how to do that at home. You have the confidence to give your dog herbs or homeopathy or adjust their food in a way that can support them at home without having to go to the vet and potentially get put on meds or some kind of treatment that makes you uncomfortable and ends up making them worse and prolongs the cycle of disease and sickness. So that's the difference. So conventional vets are set up to treat many dogs as quickly as possible. One size fits all, not much individualized care, if any at all. Holistic and homeopathic care is little known. I didn't know about it, and I would have given anything to know about it back when I had Skip and Anne. But I mean, I did towards the end of their lives. And that's when I found out. But I wish I knew earlier on. I wish I could have started that way right out of the gate because I would have been so far ahead of the curve. So the holistic and homeopathic vets just set you up. They focus on root cause and they focus on lifestyle and supporting the entire dog, looking at the entire picture anytime something goes wrong. So let's look at an ear infection, for example, or an ear flare up. If you went to a conventional vet, they would silence the symptoms to give you a quick, visible outcome so that they have a very objective marker for a content or a happy customer. They follow a script. They give the meds based on the diagnosis, not the dog in front of them. It's one size fits all. And instead of treating the symptom as a messenger for what is going on internally, telling you that the dog has some kind of imbalance, instead of treating it as a messenger and treating it as a detox process that should be supported instead of silenced, conventional vet is just going to shut it up so that you feel comfortable. They look like the hero. They move on to the next dog. And what stinks about that is when we silence that messenger, when we silence that symptom, when the dog doesn't get to, when the dog's body doesn't get to fully go through that detox process, it pushes that imbalance deeper into the body. And usually it's going to recur. It's going to come back as another ear infection, probably a faster onset, maybe even more symptomatic the next time. And that's where we get stuck in the veterinary system. Conventional vets, they weren't trained in root causes. So I don't even know that it's not that they're refusing to make the connection or they don't want to. I just don't think there's a lot of awareness. They really treat everything in isolation. Like an ear flare up is related to the ear. Something got in the ear was wet. It's not related to food or something in the environment that triggered it. It's not related to stress. Like to them, or microbiome. To them, it's just an isolated incident. They treat it, it's gone. In their mind, it's gone too. I don't think there's a lot of awareness of the fact that there's more connection. Whereas a homeopathic or holistic vet is going to ask you a lot more questions. Any changes in the diet recently, any stress in the home recently, anything sprayed on your yard and used in your home? Did you switch laundry detergents? What's going on with your dog's water? They're going to ask a lot more questions so that they can dig deeper into what caused the flare up in the first place, what your dog's body is reacting to, and then they address that. They give gentle support for the ear. I mean, I talked about Pine's ear on a previous podcast and in my Instagram stories recently. He just had an ear flare up that was related to the nonstop inflammation loop that he was experiencing from flea itch. And he's not super itchy, but he's just, since the start of summer, since July, he's had constant inflammation and constant flea pressure. And, could be combined with something else too in the food, who knows, but he had an ear flare up. And instead of rushing to the vet and saying, give me something to get rid of the ear gunk, to make him stop head shaking and just shut it up, I supported him with homeopathy and herbs and adjusted his food, added gut support, added immune support, like added those things and supported him gently through it, where the ear infection healing process was kind of up and down over 3 to 4 weeks. Whereas, gosh, I can't remember the last time Skip and Anne had an ear infection, but it would clear up pretty quickly with what the vets prescribed and you would feel so good. But really, we're silencing our dog's symptoms. They're messengers of something else that's going on in the body. Depression, a dog that's very even, and when these messages go away and you're not seeing them, sorry. I know when you have a naturally reared dog, I'm moving around way too much. So for me, having this naturally reared dog for the first time, it has been pretty eye-opening because one, I'm paying attention a lot more, but two, they're more expressive. They're showing their body reacts more and communicates more. And I see those more as communicators and messengers now than symptoms I want to shut up. So it almost seems like he's got more going on than Skip and Ann used to, which he may have. And it may be a result of me paying attention more or the fact that he's not being suppressed or his immune system's not being suppressed. But it's really interesting how that you would think the opposite. You would think a dog is healthier the less they're showing signs of disruption. Whereas if you're seeing those signs of disruption, if you'd suppress them a few times and they go away, that's really concerning because that means the imbalance is now deeper in the body where you can't openly see a window into what's going on, if that makes any sense. I had, you got to listen to the Crunchy Carnivore podcast and listen to Dr. Levy talk about this subject. She did a much better job than I did, but when I heard it, I'm like, wow, I've been seeing this in real time and it's really interesting. And yeah, and it's worth mentioning here too. I feel like I've talked about it before, but our holistic vets and integrative vets and homeopathic vets, they're not witch doctors. They are woo-woo. It's not all woo-woo. It's not all black magic. Conventional, all of our vets they have to go through the same traditional veterinary schooling first. And they become licensed. They all become licensed. They all go through the same veterinary schooling. But the conventional vets stay. They finish that school and they go into the conventional practice. And they adhere to the standard of care and spend, 5 to 15 minutes figuring out or coming up with a diagnosis and sending someone home with meds, suppressing symptoms. They perform emergency surgeries, perform routine surgeries like spay and neuter. They do blood work and heartworm tests, fecal tests, all of those things. That's what they do. They stay there. They don't further their education. Then the integrative and holistic and homeopathic vets further their education. They go on to add more tools to their toolbox. Most of them have spent a lot of time in the conventional world. They get sick of it. They learn about what really helps dogs and they leave and they add more tools, homeopathy, herbs, acupuncture, food therapy, traditional Chinese medicine, laser therapy, chiropractics. They add more tools to the toolbox because because they're fed up. And that's why we have to kind of be gentle with our conventional vets. I hate to say be gentle because some are so mean to me as an educator online, mean to me as a dog parent, mean to those of you who I work with one-on-one, or those of you who are subscribed, or those who I engage with on Instagram. I hear the stories about you being shamed when you talk about raw feeding and shamed when you talk about vaccine alternatives or say that you don't want to further vaccinate your dog because you trust your immunity and you trust the science. You're shamed when you want to explore safe, natural alternatives to flea and tick preventatives. So these vets, they're mean. They shame, they talk down, they're condescending. So it's really hard for me to defend them. But at the same time, like I talked about in the beginning, we have to remember that they are being forced to work in a model where there is a need. Although their services and their guidance and advice, their treatments aren't optimal for dogs' health, they are necessary. There's so many dogs, so many dog owners, dog parents, dog guardians, whatever you want to call yourself, that lean on vets only for care in the human world. You think about people going into the emergency room for a stubbed toe. I mean, there's so much strain on our poor medical workers, vets included, and they're just trying to meet demand. They're doing what they're taught. They're watching their asses. It's a big liability thing. So the conventional veterinary medicine model is built around the standard of care. The standard exists to be legally defensible, broadly accepted, and efficient. It allows them to treat a high volume of animals and meet a baseline of safety. And they're forced into that model. That's what they signed up for. That's what they're trained in. And they have to do it because there's not, I know this because I work one-on-one with a holistic framework and it takes a lot of time. And that's why I only can do X amount of appointments a week or only open up my calendar 2 weeks out of the month because it is really involved. It takes a lot more than 5 to 15 minutes. My consultations are 45 minutes long. And then there's lots of back and forth email engagement. There's lots of working with people that subscribe to me on Instagram. And it is so much more than you can accomplish in 5 to 15 minutes. And our conventional vets were trained in a way that they have to diagnose and come up with a treatment plan and get these people out the door in a very short amount of time. So it's stressful for them. I think to some degree, they have to know that what they're doing, I'm struggling with this one. So there's some nobility to it where if they didn't exist, a lot of dogs would not have the care that they need. And but because they exist, there's a lot of dog parents like you and I who I assumed for a long time that the type of care they were offering was the only type of care and the best care. I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. Good way to explain it. And again, they're offering just the standard of care, just the minimum. So that can be a frustrating place to be in. And then you have people on the internet like me, people walking in, talking about raw feeding and talking about vaccine natural immunity and alternatives to vaccines. You have people coming in talking about this stuff, and there's defensiveness. And then there's also genuine belief in the system that they were taught in. And they believe that is the only way. So, to bring this into what I titled this and what I talked about on Instagram, I just wish there was more. There needs to be awareness first. I think a lot of them maybe aren't even aware that they went to veterinary school and they just signed up to be a conventional vet, a local vet. And their duty is to just get people in and out quick and efficient. That's it. Help as many dogs as possible. And maybe they don't realize that's what they were signing up for. And there seems to be awareness that if they are in that, they need to own up to that and understand that and be a lot more welcoming and warm to those who are seeking a better way, who are like, the standard of care is not enough for me and my dog. I want to learn about how I can do more. And it's okay if you don't have the answers for me, but who can I talk to? And that would be such a great place for us to land if we could get something in veterinary offices or make it part of the veterinary appointment to say, you seem like you want to be really involved and you want to learn more about nutrition and you want to learn more about holistic alternatives. Here are some websites for you to check out. Here's some resources for you. These people can help point you in the right direction. What a better place. What better place would we be in? And in doing that, these vets claim to be so overworked, so stressed. Maybe if they would outsource more of what they weren't good at instead of attacking it, they would have less strain. We'd be seeing less dogs in their practice because they would be pushing more people to understand this model of caring for dogs to where they wouldn't need veterinary care very much. Because that is my goal. That is my goal for myself, for my dog, for anyone that I work with, anyone who follows me. My goal is to get you to a point where you're not so reliant on veterinary care. It alleviates our vets who are overworked, saves us money, saves our dogs stress, and keeps them from inputs that they don't need, steroids and antibiotics and more shots and prescription kibbles. It avoids those inputs and gives us more confidence caring for our dogs at home. And I think collaboratively we could accomplish a lot more. So yeah, to bring it all home, it's funny to me. I don't get attacked as much as I used to, but when I do get attacked on the internet, it's by licensed veterinary professionals. And it blows my mind because, and I think I told this story before, but that vet that I worked with to get acupuncture for Anne, I'll never forget how she and I had been working together. Let's see, it'd probably been about a year and up until Anne's cancer diagnosis. And we had a good relationship. I really liked her. I remember she got me on fresh food feeding. She really paid attention to Anne, was helping me work through her arthritis issues and her skin issues. And she was awesome. When the cancer thing happened and she told me that my list of options were short and if I wasn't going to do chemo or radiation, she didn't really know what else I could do. She did recommend a little bit of diet stuff. She did tweak the acupuncture some to help support her on the cancer journey. But other than that, she couldn't give me a whole lot. And that's when I took matters into my own hands and I felt like I was cheating on her by seeing this holistic vet, Dr. Judy Jasek. I started seeing her virtually. And that's when I started the CBD and the mistletoe therapy and the different Chinese herbs. So I think maybe one or two appointments later after meeting with Dr. Judy Jasek, again, I felt like I was cheating on this vet who had been so good to me and I really liked her. And she would be asking for updates. And finally I said, I have to tell you, I have been working with the holistic vet. Here's what we've been doing. And I felt like I was going to get shamed or told I was doing the wrong thing or disowned by her. And I felt so bad, but I needed to tell her because I was also like, is anything going to are there any contraindications? Is anything she's doing going to be messed up and vice versa by the mistletoe and the Chinese herbs? I wanted to make sure, I had to tell her, I had to come clean. And to my surprise, we were getting an acupuncture. we were at an acupuncture session with Anne, and to my surprise, she left us in the room like she normally does for about 30 minutes, and she went and did whatever she does while Anne and I sit together, and Anne's got all her little needles. And she came back and she had this folder and all these papers, and she was so excited. She latched on to everything I had said from Dr. Judy Jasek and was researching it all and was so excited to share the alternative therapies that I was doing with Anne with other clients of hers. And she was a conventional vet. Now, she was one that was on her way out. She was already literally 1 foot out the door, was starting her own practice. She worked with in a practice with several other veterinarians, but she specialized in traditional Chinese veterinary medicine. She was tired of doing all the bad stuff, she said. So she was opening a practice centered around laser therapy and chiropractics, acupuncture, massage, things like that. So she was already 1 foot out the door. But just imagine if, you being someone who's recently learned about this stuff and is so excited about the changes you've seen in your dog, and you tell your vet that you've been going to for years that instead of shutting down and instead of looking at you like you were crazy or making you feel like you're the world's worst dog parent, imagine if they got that excited and said, "Oh, wow, this is amazing. Let me explore some of this. You would think instead of being defensive and saying it's wrong and just getting all angry, that they would embrace it and say, wow, this is working. I signed up to help dogs and save dogs. I've seen the transformation in this patient of mine by what the dog mom is telling me. I can't deny it. This is great. So there are vets out there. There are some great vets out there who will be receptive to some of these new ways. But overall, I think it's hard for them to hear. And I think there's just a major disconnect. There's a disconnect. And at the end of the day, it's on us to know. So now that you've listened to this, I guess the most important thing that I wanted to get across, because so many people don't realize this, is that you can and should have a team for your dog. You should have a holistic vet and or a homeopathic vet that you either drive to. If you're lucky enough to have one physically, great, or you meet with them virtually. And that is kind of the center of your dog's team. And if your dog ever has to be physically seen, hopefully you can have a local vet that you can rely on, that respect your values enough that you could go in and get a test, regardless of your dog's vaccine status. You can go in and get an ultrasound, get blood work, get a blood draw, whatever you may need that you can report back to your holistic or homeopathic vet. And then you have an emergency vet where if anything should come up, that's who you would see. And that's the model I have for Pine. Just know that you don't have to go to that conventional vet every single year, get the pressure every year to vaccinate, get the pressure to not feed raw, get looked down on. Like, you don't have to subject yourself to that. And that's where I like to get people, because I see it in the comments all the time. Like, well, what if my vet says this? And what if my vet says that? And at the end of the day, you don't even have to tell them what you're feeding like that. That's information that you don't have to just give up. You're not obligated to tell them. Now each individual clinic will have their own policies around vaccine requirements. So they can enforce that at their clinic, but they can't legally force you. They don't have any legal authority when it comes to rabies vaccine. They can turn you away if you're not up to date, and that's their internal policy, but they can't report you unless there is reason to suspect that your dog has rabies. So don't ever let that worry you either. And remember that emergency vets will still treat and stabilize your dog regardless of vaccination status. So hope that was helpful to everyone. This is something I wish I had known a long time ago. And the first time I met with that acupuncture vet for Anne, I was like, wow, there's different types of vets. And I just don't think enough people know this. So I wanted to make a whole episode around it. And remember, too, that I'm not a vet basher. The conventional vets have their place. And I guess that's something I kind of wanted to touch on, too. So I know the conventional vets have a place for accessible, easy, straightforward, convenient care. But for someone like myself and those of you listening who are willing to put forth the effort, whether it's financially or time-wise, to get better care, we deserve to know that there's other options. We deserve to know that that's not what we have to settle for, that the standard of care is optional and that we can pursue other directions for our dog's health. And so, yeah, I guess I'm worried about this becoming a privileged conversation, and that can go so many ways, but we all deserve to know what our options are. Nothing should be withheld from us just because someone thinks we're privileged, or Just because some people can only handle, afford, access conventional veterinary care doesn't mean that everybody should only access conventional care. There's a parallel I thought of. I like watching The Pit. I loved Grey's Anatomy, which is hilarious because I'm so anti Western medicine. But I think I like it because it's even in those shows, they slip in little jabs at homeopathy and at holistic health and at doing things naturally. It's really standardization of the conventional model in the human space, the dog space is really pushed on us in entertainment and online. We're the crazy people, we're the woo woo people, the crazy people, the quacks, if we choose an alternative way, which is usually a way that exceeds the standard of care, a way that requires more research and more effort and more dedication. But it's funny how much the standard of care is still pushed, and that has to make you wonder. There's a lot of money behind standardization and efficient and effective models. There's a business side to it, which I touched on earlier. So that was an interesting parallel that I wanted to add here at the end. Thanks again, guys, for being a part of this mission of mine. And thank you so much for being so supportive and following along and listening to these podcasts and giving me great feedback. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, bottom of Pine's heart, who's at my feet right now ready for me to make him some dinner. Thank you guys, and until next time, love your dogs.